Hello, Welsh Forest Focus as it finishes 1-1 between the Reds and Sunderland in Spain, with Omar Richards scoring 2 minutes into his first appearance for the club in the pre-season friendly this evening. We'll discuss him, the players that stood out, what we learned, plus touch on the signing of Nikola Milenkovic in the company of, first of all, Mark Sutherns. Mark, good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, a bit tired. The heat got to me a bit last night. Didn't get much sleep, but judging by you two, you've had even tougher last 24 hours by the sounds of it. So I've got nothing to moan about.
We've had a pre-stream battle of who's had it hardest. I mean, I can't really complain because I have had a lovely holiday. I just had to drive back 7 hours from Devon just before turning the game on. So yeah, all good for me. Chris from Forest All Over, final guest. How are you doing?
I'm all right, yeah. No, I upstaged both of you by telling you that I had my tooth pulled last night, and I'm just back eating some solids. So, but it's actually not that bad. I'm making it sound more dramatic than it is.
Some solids and some liquids, Chris. Or,
Yeah, well, maybe some alcohol too soon. I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I had a heavy one on Wednesday, as I said beforehand. So yeah, I've been taking it easy. But yeah, no, I'm actually all right, and and I'm actually enjoying the preseason now as well. I really feel like, obviously Ireland weren't in the Euro, so I've had nothing. But I really feel like, Forest are kind of back, and there's only a few weeks away, and there's excitement building, and you're seeing all these players, and you're getting excited about ones that have come back, etc. So it's actually it's actually a really nice feeling to kind of be back,
I can't remember the Euros. Did anything happen? I'm not sure. It's erased from my memory after.
I don't want to go back there. Let's move on. Let's look forward, like Chris says. Let's look forward to Forest.
Okay. Well, you lads had a good tournament. I don't know what you're complaining about. You went
Let's go there, Chris.
Not complaining. Yes. Good to have 120 odd people with us in the first minute or so, including Mikey, who was at the cricket today. I saw. So I don't know how sober he is walking over Trent Bridge. I hope he can walk in a straight line and listen to us. Chris was pretty positive there, Mark. Looking forward yourself. I'll ask both of you just some general thoughts on the game, and then we'll get into some specifics, starting with you, Mark.
Positive. I mean, this is coming from someone who watched last season's pre-season friendlies through Forest TV as well, and I remember distinctly what I witnessed last season at this moment in time was far less convincing than what we saw today. I mean, there wasn't too much to take from the game, but there was some positives in that the passing was snappy, it was quick to feet, the press was there. They, in general, look a lot fitter than we did this time last year, and it looks like there's some purpose in our system and our way of playing. Three at the back in both halves. I'm not sure whether that is a sign of things to come or whether that's just because of the personnel we've got available and everyone needs minutes. But yeah, I feel that although, it wasn't a great game and there's not much you can take from it in terms of result or performance as such, there were some pointers there that suggest that we're looking better prepared already than we were this time last season.
Yeah, I think so. I think three at the back in both games as well, which is interesting. I think that might be a pointer. I remember speaking to Colin Frey before the first friendly, Chris, and saying, for me, pre-season isn't about results. I just want to see players looking fit and some cohesion and plan of what they know what they're doing. And to me, that's there thus far. Still early in pre-season, but I'm pretty encouraged by what I've seen, including tonight. What about you?
Yeah, over the course of the two friendlies, I'm very positive. Not just because football and Forest are back. It's because, as Mark touched on there, the last two pre-seasons, coming into the Premier League weren't great. I mean, they were awful. They were pretty bad. And we had a mixed mash of players. That first pre-season that Cooper first came up in, then last season's pre-season was a bit of a disaster. And watching this, it just feels like we have more depth. I mean, we're seeing halftime switches and not a load of academy players or players who we don't think are going to be there anymore, or gaps or holes in the middle of the park. It actually looks like we've a bit of depth. When you go from one half of Dominguez and Danilo to another half of Sangare and Yates, it's exciting to know that we have that depth all around the pitch. So yeah, I've been really, really buoyant about what I've seen, and the depth and the fitness and how sharp everyone is and the clear plan as well. It looks like Nuno has a clear plan going into each game, and he's not just treating it like a bleep test in a fitness session. He's actually trying to work on things. And that's not to say Cooper wasn't, but I didn't think Cooper had much of a choice, particularly the first preseason when we came. But yeah, it looks, I'm really excited about what I've seen, and we probably still have some more signings to come in. We obviously have the Serbian centre back who's come in recently as well, who we haven't seen. And yeah, no, we look good, and we look like we're giving them a good go as well in both games. So yeah, I'm happy.
Do drop your comments and your verdicts in as we go along. I see people are. David asked who the third centre back was in the second half. Yeah, Harry Toffolo played on the left of a 3, which I don't think is necessarily a good sign for him. It's still very early, but when he gets that nod, I wouldn't have been too excited if I was him. Seeing Richards do well, score a goal. Richards will grab the headlines, Mark. I think that he'll be a player Nuno really likes because he's athletic. If he can stay fit, he feels like he fits the mould that Nuno likes. What do you think of it? What you saw there tonight?
Yeah, I think we saw Tavares on loan, didn't we? And Tavares,
exactly.
Thinking, well, he's not a defender really, but what he does give you is pace and power on the transition, and that unlocked Hudson-Odoi for quite a few occasions. So I think Richards fits that archetype perfectly, doesn't he? Really. So I think you're right. You could be onto something there. I feel for Toff because if out of the two, if there was a choice who's going to make the squad, I would imagine that Richards has got the advantage because of that pace and power that he brings.
It's obvious. It's just fitness with Richards, isn't it, Chris? But 45 minutes tonight's good. It's just if you have to choose between him and Toff for the squad, and this is really early, and maybe you can carry 3 left backs to be fair, but that battle's an interesting one. Richards looks like he's got the natural attributes that kind of suit Forest, though.
I think just who's got more of a ceiling, and I think Richards does. I think he's got, I think we are probably seeing Toffolo's ceiling. Was he 27, 28? And I feel like, Richards has been terribly unlucky with fitness battles over the course of the last couple of years. But in terms of his actual ceiling with potential, Richards looks like he'd have the edge for me. And I know I've just watched like one half of his friendly game that he was in there, but like I feel like you can already tell when you're watching someone just the way he was overlapping, how tidy he was in tight spaces in the ball. Yes, we're playing Sunderland, it's a friendly, but again, it just feels like he'd have more potential to kick on and give us more of what we need. So if I was to choose one over the other, unfortunately, it would be Richards. Toffolo is what you need for the last 2 seasons, where you need stability and someone who can do a job. But we need to now take it up a level. And yeah, I'd probably give him the nod. Not just because he scored a great goal today, but you know what I mean. I just think he has the ceiling.
If he's fit, yeah, I agree. If he can stay fit, then there's definitely something there. He played very high, and we'll probably talk a bit of tactics in general as we wrap it up. If we go back to the first half, Mark, we played 2 11s. Probably the first half 11 looked stronger, but there were some interesting names in the second half. I wrote down Hudson-Odoi for standing out for me. Talk about him and anyone else who you kind of like the look of from what you saw in the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, he just looks super sharp, doesn't he? I think he was the standout from the first half. You're absolutely right. Every time he got the ball, he was really positive, driving forward, taking them 1 man on or 2 men on at times. Skipped over a challenge, didn't he, in that first half? Got wide, and we were a bit unfortunate. One of the few occasions we got behind Sunderland tonight. But yeah, he looked a live wire, and then Elanga came on, and of course, second half set up the goal. So my only fear is that if we do play 3 at the back with the wing backs high, how do we get Elanga and Hudson-Odoi on the pitch? That looks difficult, doesn't it? So and that'll be interesting. I felt first half a couple of players I think still look a bit short. I think Gibbs White again didn't look as sharp comparatively to Hudson-Odoi, but also Danilo looked sharp, I thought, as well. I thought he had some really good touches, a lot of mobility. He looks ahead of some of the others. Him and Hudson-Odoi definitely look ahead of some of the others for fitness. Chris Wood did okay, but one thing that concerns me is our lack of depth there. Chris was talking about depth all over the pitch, but up front we're very short. When it's Emmanuel Dennis coming on for the second half, who's not really a central striker, he's more of a wide attacker. It tells me that we've got to be doing some business there. And I'm a little bit worried that we haven't seen any names in that position mentioned yet. Whether there's a loan sign in, that's the thinking. I don't know, because obviously you've got to spend big if you're going to add to the 11. But Chris Wood did okay, but it wasn't really his day, and we didn't really get him enough service, did we? We didn't really get crosses into the box, and that would be my only fear with the system, is that we're robbing ourselves of playing Elanga and Hudson-Odoi out wide if we play 3 at the back. So I'm jury's still out really on what formation we're going to start the season with and how often we vary that. But the first half was positive. I thought the second half, Anderson came on, had some lovely touches, and Sangare again was a bit of a standout. He definitely looks to have a lot more confidence about him, a bit more mobility, doesn't he?
Yeah, I want to come on to Sangare and Anderson as 2 players. And I guess without having Taiwo, it is a bit of a worry. He said he missed the camp because of a personal issue. I know, Mark, you were saying you've seen a tweet suggesting he's trained on his own back in England today. So I guess, I'll stick with you, Mark. That is a big worry if Taiwo, if he's not going to be reliable, and I'm not judging his situation, obviously, because we don't know the reason, but if he's not going to be around, then you can't rely on Dennis, really, can you? Dennis is fine as a wide option, but Chris Wood isn't going to play 38 games, 90 minutes, is he?
No, and this is the concern I've got. In that I think that obviously we know Wood, what he brings us. It's not mobility, it's not pace, it's a presence up front. He can hold the ball up, he can play others in, and obviously he takes his chances when he gets them, as we saw for a lot of last season. And his goals kept us up. There's no question of that. But if we're going into the season without Taiwo, which if he's going to miss, how many pre-season minutes is he going to get now? If he missed this tour, he's going to miss these 3 games. We've got the Villarreal game, we've got the Olympiacos game, of course, but is that going to be enough to put him in the reckoning for the opening game of the season? Probably not. So we're already looking at going into the season without him, I would have thought. It's a concern. It's a real concern I have, because if we end up with Taiwo sidelined again and we only have Chris Wood, then someone's got to come through the door before the window shuts on the 31st.
Yeah, I think you're right. Going back to the first half then, couldn't really read too much into Miguel because he didn't have a lot to do. Young Zach Abbott was interesting, and Worrell, they weren't really tested, but Abbott looked fine to me, and it's good to see him in the shake-up. And the link-up with Aylmer and Hudson-Odoi, again, is really promising. That was probably Forest's bright spot. And Danilo looks like a player that suits pre-season in that he can be bright on the ball, he can be progressive without knowing he's going to get crunched. So good to see from him. I suppose the one downside of the half, Chris, was just we completely controlled it, and then just that typical kind of pre-season thing, you're not really concentrating, and Murillo messes up. Any complaints about the penalty at all? It looked pretty nailed, I guess.
No, none at all. I think with Murillo, he must be kicking himself, because he was a bit lackadaisical on the ball, gave it away, then lunged in. Definitely a penalty. And Miguel nearly saved it as well, actually. I actually thought he was going to save it, because he got a hand to it and it sort of scooped up and under his arm. But no complaints about the penalty. Yeah, lax, silly. If that can happen against Sunderland, that can certainly happen in a Premier League game. So yeah, I hope we're not going to be too dangerous at the back by passing it out like that. But it was just silly mistake, and no complaints about the penalty at all. But Murillo's he's class. He'll be kicking himself over that. So maybe it's better to happen now than it is to happen at the start of the season. And hopefully we still have Murillo at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think it's all fine. I mean, players are going to make mistakes in pre-season. I'm not worried about it. Probably the centre half thing that's interesting, Mark, is with the lineup that we've got now, and you got to keep kind of one of them as the backup, the final backup. I guess Worrell and Abbott kind of competing in a way for that role. I mean, would you keep Joe around to be that 6th centre half if we don't need to sell him now for PSR?
Would it be fair to him? Because I think that, he's a regular starter in a Championship side, and there'll be Championship sides queuing up for him. We know there's some, Sheffield United are showing an interest. I think he could still do a job for us as a backup, but I think he deserves to play football. So I think it'd be right to let him go, to be honest, because I think that I wouldn't be surprised to be strengthened again in that area as well. I think we're there's been a few names knocking about even after the signing of Milenkovic. So I think that Joe will leave the club, and I think that probably is the right thing to do for his career. But obviously, great servant, and if there is a way of keeping him and he wants to stay around the club, then obviously I wouldn't turn that down. But I think he deserves a move now.
Yeah, I think that's true. I agree with that, and I think that's fine, because if you've got Murillo, Milenkovic, and Bolly as probably your first 3 frontline central defenders, and then Omar Richards, then you're pretty well set there, and you could have Abbott. And am I missing one? or is that all we've got?
No, I think that is it.
That's it, yeah.
So we probably do need one more.
Well, there's always Toffolo, of course, who can slot in on the left.
Yeah. Rafik mentions Jake O'Brien as well if Murillo goes. So,
that's right.
Yeah, we'll see. But I do think that we've got a good Premier League defensive unit in the Milenkovic, Murillo, and Bolly certainly right now. Going on to the second half, then it was kind of all change as in the other game. I want to talk about Sangare. I mean, he looks lean, he looks sharp, he looks a different player. Again, you have to caveat all this, Chris, with it's pre-season, but just physically, he looks in better shape, and he looked pretty sharp again to me tonight.
Yeah, no, both games he's looked good. He wants the ball, he's getting on the ball, he's popping balls over the top, he's making progressive cutting passes, his ball pace is good. He's also getting stuck in, winning the ball back, breaking up play, but not like sort of the Yates breaking up play and winning the ball and then carrying it forward. There was, a couple of moments where, someone would win a free kick and yet Sangare was right up on it, wanting the ball. So it looks like he actually wants it more than he has before. And the last 2 games that I've seen him in pre-season so far, he's looked really good. Like I have no questions about having him as the 6 at all. I probably didn't before the season started because I know his potential, but I thought he's been excellent so far. And yeah, he could be really important for us next year. He should be really important for us next year. And not just because of the price tag, but because of his potential, because he is a good player and he did have good moments last season in some big games. And, obviously injuries and AFCON and other events happened and it didn't quite work out for him. But I think this is his season. And so far it's really bright from what I've seen. And yes, it's the caveat of it's just pre-season, but yeah, he just looks like every time, from what I've seen so far, all 4 halves, he looks like the sharpest player on the pitch. He really does. Him and Hudson-Odoi anyway, yeah.
Just before we get Mark's take on Sangare, good to have 250 plus people with us. If you do us a favour and hit like, that'd be great. And also, talking of it's pre-season, you can watch all the pre-season friendlies. They're being streamed at the NAV. So do get down. That was a short video. I'm going to show that video again. You can watch all the pre-season friendlies at the NAV, so get down there and enjoy all the pre-season action. I heard it mentioned on TMS today when I was listening to the test match with Michael Vaughan talking about what a good venue it was and how he got a lively reception from 450. He said Notts fans, so Notts cricket, not Forest fans, at the event that was, I see, hosted by Temps yesterday.
Yeah,
it with
played a blinder apparently. Yeah,
did he?
Well, apparently he was, the hostess with the mostest. Yeah, very good, apparently. So.
Oh, well, don't be too.
He's taking notes off you, man. He's out writing it down.
Well, it depends who said he was good. Was it him who told you he was good, Mark?
No, I don't think so. No, I just saw some threads saying how well he did and what a good night it was. So. Yeah.
No, he's very good. He's a very smooth operator. So yeah, and he'll be on Monday. We'll do more pre-season on Monday with Greg, Temps, and Gary on the panel. 11 a.m. on Monday. Right, Mark. Get your take on Sangare as well, because he could be so important for us this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell in terms of, he's had 245 minutes, but what I saw tonight was a player that looks to be more confident. It's just the pass selection, right? He wasn't always playing sideways passes. He was looking at playing some ambitious switches of play across the pitch and passing between the lines, a bit more incisive kind of stuff we've seen from Murillo. So he looks to be taking risks with his passing, which is a sign that that's a player with some confidence and not the kind of player that we saw last season who really struggled to put a foot right, didn't he? And physically as well, he's moving about the pitch better. He's part of the press. You noticed he was actually getting into their half to press and putting some pressure on, as were all the team. That was generally that's been a feature that we saw tonight, was the press was a bit more intense, and now that's going to be part of our game, it seems, when we kick off the season. And Sangare looks to be able to cope with that and actually enact it. So those are things, his passing wasn't always on point and his movement wasn't always there, that have been a real positive. So I'm reserving judgment, but like Chris, I wouldn't hesitate now to think that we can go into the season with him in the 11. I still think we might look to get a 6 in as backup or another 6, because I think it's such a crucial position. And personally, I don't think Danilo, Dominguez or Yates have got that discipline that we need to sit in front of the back four that hopefully Sangare will bring, but we'll need more cover there.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'd like to see him play consistently like this through pre-season, and if he goes in carrying these levels, and it's the fitness thing to me. He just looks more mobile
Yeah.
and more confident. They're probably the main things. I mean, if this is the player we're going to get and he can play like this all the time, then yeah, I'm really happy with what I've seen so far. He does look different to last season, so that's great. A couple other players to touch on as well before we go. Anderson, first, I haven't seen the Chesterfield game apart from highlights. It's the first time I've seen him in an extended spell in a Forest shirt. What did you make of him, Chris?
Well, in the Chesterfield game, he looked less sharp than he did today. So, he looked like he lacked a little bit of fitness and just was getting used to getting back to playing some more football. So he actually looked really sharp today, I thought he was decent. Won a couple of free kicks, a couple of nice tricky feet, getting himself in good positions. It was tricky second half because, as Mark's touched on, when Dennis is the focal point, so to speak, it just didn't seem to click for everyone, apart from obviously Langa's mazy little run through and Richards' finish. But I felt like it was difficult for Anderson because I feel like if he had someone in front of him like a Wood or a Taiwo, I think he could open up teams a bit better with their runs. But he was good. Really tidy feet. Looked sharper today. Looked like he's getting into it. Got stuck in. It's good to have him. It's good to have him as a backup to Gibbs White as well. I know that he might be playing the 8 next year, but he's a backup to Gibbs White. He can play that position and he's flexible. And, Mark actually does make a good point about the Sangare and the Taiwo positions. Like if we lose either of them, we are stuck. We've got Wood, but then who else do we have? And for the Gibbs White position, we have that backup now. We have Anderson who can back him up. So yeah, he looked really sharp today and much sharper than the Chesterfield game. But yeah, I loved him.
You can just see like his intelligence, the way he receives the ball, Mark. He always takes it in good positions on the half turn. You can see what's in front of him. I know Philip here asks about potentially playing him as a false 9. I wouldn't really want to do that because he looks like he plays better in a deeper role. I can see why Philip's asking it if we are sure. But I really like Anderson. I know you did before he signed. What do you think of him now? You've seen him a little bit more.
Yeah, he brings us so much versatility. He's 2-footed. He's technically very good. His first touch is there. His passing's good. He's got an eye for goal as well. We haven't seen it yet, but we will see it. I like him as a player that just fills many gaps in the squad for us. It is interesting that he played in the 10 tonight. The pre-season will tell us whether or not he's going to start that Bournemouth game in the 8. I thought Danilo did okay today, to be honest. He showed up well. So it's not an automatic shoe in there that he gets that role. Could he play false 9? I think it's more likely that Gibbs White will play the false 9 and Anderson the 10, because Gibbs White did that for the under-21s, didn't he? Under Lee Carsley with Gordon and Palmer either side. So Gibbs White can play that role if we need to go away from home and be and sit a bit deeper and not play a central striker, either out of tactical reasons or because we don't have one fit. I don't want to see that though. I want Gibbs White in the 10 and Anderson around him ideally, and I think that will give us that creativity we need. That wasn't really on show too much tonight. There were flashes of it, mainly from Hudson-Odoi and Alanga's break, and a few nice touches from Anderson, but we need more. I mean, I want to see more from Gibbs White in the next couple of friendlies for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Does it feel like kind of the makings of the 11 are already emerging, Chris? Because like Mark said earlier, Elanga might be the one that gets squeezed out if we play a back 3, and you can kind of see the rest of it. Then it's Anderson or Danilo potentially, and Wood or Awoniyi is probably a more settled debate now because Tayo hasn't gone. But kind of maybe 8 or 9 of the 11's almost picked. As there's the keeper situation, but can you see the makings of a team already this far into pre-season?
Definitely, yeah. I do think the Anderson question is a little more tricky because, how are you going to get him into the team? If, as Mark said, if Danilo's playing well, and then Elanga as well. We know who's most likely going to be starting. We know Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to be starting. Even in the pre-seasons, he's still cutting through people like hot butter. Gibbs White, Wood. We know Sangare is going to be the 6, and defensively, if Murillo is still here, we know it's going to be Murillo and Milenkovic and Miguel. So yeah, pretty much, yeah. Williams on the right back, Aina as well. Yeah, you pretty much have 9 out of 11 of your starters pretty nailed on. It's just the Anderson question, and where does he fit in? Because that's going to obviously squeeze out one or two of the other players. And it might end up being Danilo. You know, we might just start with Anderson in that 8, and then, you know, it's a case of what formation we end up playing. But yeah, I just like the look. I like the fact that that's even happened. You know, the last couple of pre-seasons, we don't even know who's coming in the door back end of the transfer window. We don't know who we're getting rid of. We don't know how many players we have. We had lots of late fitness tests. Like, it's just good to see. Finally, we know that at least we have that nailed on sort of 9-10 players already, and then we have a bit of depth surrounding it. But we for sure need to bring in a couple of more players. Striker, I would want to bring in, even if Toivo was fit, I'd want a third striker. Do you know what I mean? And I agree with Mark on what he said earlier about having someone in for the 6. I think we do need backup there. Anything happens to Sangare, you know, we're sort of back to basics in that position, and we really need to kick on. So striker and defensive midfielder are the 2 positions, and then another defender, obviously, if Murillo goes. But yeah, I think we definitely have the makings of 11 so far, and you can see it. You can definitely see it on show. Well, listen, we're buying loads of Brazilian legends, so it's working out for 5 million. Riquelme looks like he's coming in, whoever he is. Moreira actually looks sharp, by the way, as well. He's another young kid, but it's working. It's working out for us so far. And you know what? We're past the deadline of PSR now, so we just go mad now and then figure it out next June. You know.
No, don't say that. I can't have another.
Let's not figure it out.
No, let's get it.
We'll just sell someone like Niakate for 30 million. It's great. Like that's what we'll do.
What do you make of Milenkovic?
I don't know.
What do you make of Milenkovic coming in, Mark? Because like Chris referenced Niakate going for 27 million. We've signed a guy for 12 million who on paper looks as good, if not probably better, to be honest, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've watched a few videos who talked about some scout reports. I know you did one recently, Matt, which was really interesting on his abilities. He's highly thought of in Serie A. Of course, he was their highest paid player at Fiorentina, Serbian international. I think he's won 50 caps, so he's got experience in that level. Obviously, he had a long European campaign with Fiorentina last season as well. So the pedigree is there. The physical presence and the data that shows he's dominant in the air certainly fits the profile of the kind of defender we need. We needed someone you can't rely on Bolly. Bolly can provide that role, but he's not going to play more than maybe 15 games next season. So, because his fitness is an issue. So I think it was a vital signing that type of defender came in. We've got to see how he adjusts. It's not an easy switch, even from Serie A. I mean, it is a very competitive league. They do play at a reasonable pace, but the demands are different. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to deal, how will he deal with Solanke game week 1? Maybe that'll be Murillo's job if he's still around, hopefully, because Murillo kept him very, very quiet in the away game last time out. So, yeah, I've got high hopes for him because we needed that type of player. But we need to be patient because we saw, with Sangare, it can take some time to adjust and he's still yet to prove himself. So let's not put too much pressure on him, but I'm glad he's through the door because we needed him.
What about you, Chris? In terms of kind of signing physicality as much as anything, I mean, it's a bit basic, but I'm fully on board with it. It's to solve the aerial problems and set piece problems.
Yeah, well, so Ireland have played Serbia a couple of times the last few years, and he played in 2 of the games, I believe. One of them, I think he scored an own goal, but he looked really solid, and they looked good. And from everything I've read and seen, and obviously I've seen him play for Fiorentina in a couple of Conference League finals, or whatever. He was there 6 years. He was their centre back, Fiorentina centre back, for a good 5 or 6 years, and he's only 26. Yeah, he looks sharp. He looks good. He's 6'5". I think the price is. It's not. How do I say this? It's a little it is a little ridiculous. Like, he's in his prime. He's a Serbian international. He's got about 50, 60 caps for Serbia. And he's playing for Fiorentina, a team who've made 2 European finals. And we only got him for 12 million or something. I know the wages are high, but it seems very low. I mean, he's a 20 to 25 million pound centre back, isn't he? Like, he is. So I feel like we've got away with one there, and it's good to have him in the team. I think Omar Richards can kind of be his understudy a little bit as well. It'll be good for him. And I think we're looking good. I think it's a really, really, really shrewd signing.
Yeah, it was interesting what Adam Summerton said. Check that out if you haven't seen it. He said he's like what Chris said about his valuation, that he probably was kind of a Spurs Villa level player. So for us to get him certainly feels very positive. I should wrap up the game for people who didn't actually see it and just around chances. Sunderland did have a really good chance late in the game when their striker ran off Nico Williams and headed over when he should have scored. And then Ryan Yates, right at the end, in what stoppage time there was, good save from Patterson, who looks a good keeper, and then Yates hit the post.
Actually, the second one was a save, by the way. The second
save, it wasn't. You correct? Yeah, sorry.
Two saves. No, but if there was VAR there, it would have been nice to see if that went over the line, but I don't think it did. I think it was two really good saves, to be honest. But yeah,
it was. He looks good player. Sunderland has some decent players. Obviously, Bellingham's brother's decent, and young Rigg as well.
Clark as well.
Yeah, I'd like. Clark's player I'd like us to sign actually, but young Rigg in midfield looks sharp. So yeah, Mark, any final thoughts on the game and just how things are shaping up before we head off?
No, I mean, it's a shame we didn't really see Miguel tested more. I mean, I think he did all right with the penalty. He nearly got to it. There's an assumption. Well, I mean, Sells isn't back yet, but there's an assumption that he's going to start the season. I want to see him. I want to see more of him in the next couple of friendlies. I want to see what he can do. He got down pretty quickly for the penalty. I was kind of waiting for Clark to stick that low, thinking that he wouldn't get down to it, but he almost saved it. So that was a good sign. His handling looks good. His distribution looks really good as well. He looks confident. It looks like he's settled very quickly. And we haven't seen him tested yet, which is a good thing for the defence. But I want to, the jury's still out as to whether he or Sells starts the season. We'll have to see about that.
Chris, sorry, anything from you in terms of what you've seen tonight, how you feel is shaping up? Final thoughts before we head off?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit more content and a little less panicked about everything because, the previous pre-seasons were so manic and we were still trying to fix our team. And, obviously it's a completely different feel, a completely different look. And yeah, I just feel like we're going to be a lot more prepared, which is what pre-season is all about. We're less than a month away from the start of the season. And already I feel like we could play in 2-3 weeks time rather than a month's time. So like I feel like I'm just happy. It feels like we've more depth as well. I know we have a couple of positions to fill in, but it really does feel like we've more quality and depth. And even some of the players coming back, Dennis and Richards, they look really good for against Sunderland, but they look decent. Whether both of them or one of them will be around after the transfer window or whatever, I don't know. But I'm really, really excited for the start of the season based on what I've seen. And I'm just much calmer than I was last year. But as soon as the season starts, of course, that'll go out the window when we lose 3-2 to Bournemouth at home. Hopefully not. But yeah.
Any temptation?
Not more 3-2s. No more 3-2s, please.
No. Any temptation to keep Dennis, Mark, or not?
He's lively. He offers us something. He's just not consistent, and he's a bit of a loose cannon, isn't he, in terms of not towing the line tactically. He is unpredictable, and sometimes that's the quality he can give you. But yeah, Cooper didn't like him. I didn't think he wasn't a Cooper signing allegedly. I think Nuno could get something out of him. But I'd like to think though that we can bring more reinforcements in an attack, and we don't need to have him in the squad. But if he makes it, then he can be an impact player off the bench for sure. But he's not a central striker, so he's not back up for Wood. So yeah, I hope we don't rest on our laurels there and think we've got that covered. I imagine we don't. I imagine there's work being done to source a striker option, whether that be a loan signing or a free agent like Che Adams or whatever. But we need somebody there who can come on for Wood, after an hour, or even start ahead of Wood in some games, because he can't play week in, week out, Chris Wood, and we can't put the burden of scoring the goals all on him. So we've got to give Taiwo time to get back. We don't know how long it's going to take him to get back from the issue that's keeping him out and then match fit. And then we've got to look after him when he is back, because we know he's injury prone. So equally, we can't flog him either. So we definitely need a third striker. So let's hope we get some business done.
Yeah, I'm not sure Dennis will be. I don't think he will. Because if you look at how we're playing, you can see a tactical plan of get it out wide to pacey wingers who are direct and run. And Dennis has good attributes, but he doesn't really do that. And then we're playing quite a concerted high press in these friendlies, which I like. And that requires a lot of tactical discipline. And Dennis hasn't really demonstrated that quite enough for me. So, yeah, he's done fine. And if we were really struggling, then okay. But at the moment, I would rather we sell him on if we can. If we can't sell him on, we'll be stuck with him, I guess. But not quite for me at the moment, but he's doing fine in pre-season. Colin asked if Mark's got any Forest playing his FPL team. You've done a draft video, haven't you? I saw it on Fancy Football.
Yeah, I'll likely have one of Hudson-Odoi or Morgan Gibbs-White. At the moment, from what I've seen, Hudson-Odoi, I think.
Yeah, Hudson-Odoi's in mine, and he keeps scoring goals from 20 yards by cutting in. Maybe. I mean, he did it again tonight. He looked bright again. So yeah,
I can't. I tell you what, as well, with 10 points for a goal from a goalkeeper, what about having Miguel in goal for those? Send him up with a few minutes to go from a corner. I mean, he'd cause havoc, wouldn't he, if that ever happens? So yeah, I might look at him even.
Hudson-Odoi's in your team, isn't he, Chris? At the moment, I've done about 16 drafts already, but Hudson-Odoi's in your team, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I think I had Elanga initially and then went between him and Hudson-Odoi. And I do, like, if Wood gets any sort of form whatsoever for 6.5 million, I mean, it's worth a crack. Like, do you know what I mean? My draft has obviously changed because I did one without Haaland and then one with Haaland, and that squeezes the money. But I like the look of him, and right now I have Sells on my bench as my bench keeper, but that'll probably change. But I think Gibbs White was my sort of go-to, but he's is he 6.5 minutes? It's not too high for him, but it's almost slightly too high for a Forest player right now. But yeah, it'll be between Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs White, Elanga, I reckon in the end. And Hudson-Odoi will probably win out because I just feel like he's so dangerous. And yeah, he proved that particularly at the end of last season. So yeah, I'll have him probably.
Yeah, he looks bright. He looks lean. He looks fit. He looks sharp. So yeah, a lot of players do. That's what's encouraging me. That players look fit, lean, confident. It looks like there's a plan. I mean, I know we didn't beat Sunderland, but I'm like I said at the top, I'm not really bothered by pre-season results. I don't think they're particularly relevant. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing so far. Like I said, back on Monday with Gary, Greg, and Temps, and then we'll be intermittently here through the week as normal. Might do one of these on Tuesday night again if Mark or Chris or any of the other regulars are watching. I'll probably watch along. That's Millwall, isn't it? At the same venue. So we'll check that one out. But good to have about 300 people with us tonight. Like I said, do us a favor and hit like on the video. That'd be great. And you can also subscribe. Where's my little? There it is. So disorganized. I'm out of practice now. Shame myself. Yeah, you can become a channel member. Do subscribe. Give us a lovely review on iTunes. It all certainly helps get the word out there. Right, Chris. When's your next podcast? Were you going to record one and then you just got leathered in Dublin or something?
Pretty much. Matt was working. He was filming something at Vicar Street for a fairly popular UK comedian, actually, James Acaster. He was helping film something, and. Yeah, is he? I don't know. Yeah, he is. Okay, he's pretty big.
Massive,
yeah. Matt was part of the film crew filming for that, and he's my podcast host on the Forest Lover podcast, if you don't know. But anyway, we basically went out for a meal, and then we said we were going to do a little podcast. It never happened, and we just ended up getting drunk and going to Temple Bar and singing old 90s songs in some random pub. So yeah, I was very hungover on Thursday, got my tooth pulled out Thursday evening, and here I am on Friday evening. And hopefully our podcast will be out Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever he's free, but definitely we'll probably do one next week.
He's in a new Ghostbusters movie. He's big man, big.
Yeah, I should know, but I don't know as well as him, I suppose. Yeah, or you guys, because he's UK, but I should know. But yeah, I've heard of him, of course. But yeah,
recommend an Irish comedian to us before I throw it to Mark. Tommy
Tiernan. There you go. Yeah. You know straight away I'm going to say Tommy Tiernan, Dylan Moore. And I don't know, they're kind of older school. There's some new wave come in. Bear in mind, I lived in Canada for 7 or 8 years, so I'm even finding my feet back in Ireland a little bit. It's a bit weird being back here. So yeah, I'm exploring new pubs and stuff. This podcast is going way off topic, but yeah.
Have you not watched this podcast before?
Yeah, well, it's definitely more on topic than our podcast. But yeah,
there's some big names being put in the chat. Look, Dave Allen, that's a name from the past, isn't it? Jimmy Cricket, I'm not sure you'd have him as your Dear me, some of those comedians.
Wow.
What
about you, Mark? Hopefully see you on Tuesday, but Blackbox is back, isn't it?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, back into FBL, and we'll probably be out for Wednesday or Thursday next week for another episode of that. And yeah, I'll watch the Millwall game, and I'll be around probably Tuesday night. So ping me. Let's see if we make more progress then.
Yeah.
Can I ask Mark a quick FPL question before we go? Is that right? Do you get emotional about picking, or do you have to separate the emotion picking Forest players? Like, do you ever think, Hudson-Odoi's stats are good, but I shouldn't do this because then it affects you even more?
it normally goes the other way. I'm normally biased against them. I don't really want them in my team. First season up though was terrible because that was a big factor, and it was like I didn't want to captain Haaland against us because having your captain play in your team when you've just come up to the Premier League after 23 years. But after that first season, I adjusted, and now I can be really cold and robotic about it, and it doesn't affect me. But it was hard the first year, yeah.
You, Matt?
Who have I had? Matt Turner a bit. Oh, I had Chris Wood. Chris Wood was my go-to guy, and he got
captained him a couple of times, didn't you?
I don't know. I captained him. I had him against
Luton. Against Luton, you captained, scored 2 goals,
and you got the brace,
Yeah, the game we like to forget about. And I had him for he had that purple patch, had him for a quiet spell. And I had Matt Turner, and he was hopeless. But generally, no, I do have shied away from Forest players. But this year, they're going to be a factor, I think, especially with our early fixtures. I'm going to try and get one in if they keep playing well in pre-season. I've sort of got an eye on Lorena, actually, potentially. Well, there's quite a few good. We're getting really deep into FPL. There's some good defensive options around Newcastle, Everton, Villa, Palace, I think. They've got quite a good start. So
kindly priced,
I'm going to watch Mark's Black Box after this and work out which players I should be looking at, certainly. But Mark's given me a verbal contract; he'll be here on Tuesday, so I'll hold it for the post-match show.
We'll see how it goes.
Well, maybe that's the plan. That's the plan, everyone. So hopefully see you on Tuesday. But if not, before on Monday, and we'll do some more pre-season chat. We'll touch on the Riquelme deal as well when I've had a good chance to look at him. But in the meantime, good to have your company on Friday. Is it Friday? It is Friday.
It is a Friday, yeah.
It is a Friday. Good to have people's company on a Friday evening. Yeah, it's been a long day. But have a good weekend, everyone. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me again. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
That's awkward.
That's it. Yeah, I've said my piece. I'm not going to ask Mark any more FPL questions, that's it. Yeah, no, thanks very much, and we'll maybe see you next week or whenever. And excited so far for the start of the season. We look sharp. That's all I'll say. We look sharp, and the business has been very, very good so far as well. Incomings and outgoings have been very, very good. Someone mentioned that in the comments. It's true. The business so far has been class, which is really suspicious and surprising. But it looks like we're doing okay.
We are. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, all good. Good to see you again, Chris, and thanks for having me, Matt. And business has been good, but we've still got more to do. I think there's still 2 or 3 more we need for the door. I know that's what Nuno wants, so it's not over yet. There's still plenty of movement to happen, ingoings and outgoings, I imagine.
Good. That will keep us busy. I think people are commenting on the pictures behind me. I'm going to check them after. I think they're actually a lot leveler than they look on my screen.
Wonky.
I think it's not the camera. Yeah, the camera's tilted.
Yeah, it's the camera, people. It's not the pictures. I'll fix this. I'll try to fix it on Monday. And we do have new theme music coming. People keep asking me about it in varying degrees of aggression.
It's taking longer than the mugs.
I got used to this theme music, and now you're changing it again because you had the other one. From Garibaldi Red before, but now you're on this one, so it's like I've just got used to this one. So now you're changing it. I quite like it.
By the time we play Bournemouth, it'll definitely. Right. I'm sure it would have been changed by then. Right, we've dragged on. We've talked about Irish comedians, so we've really gone off topic. So yes, do have a good weekend, everyone, and we shall see you soon.